Hello and welcome to Mad Dog Hobby, just a guy enjoying the hobby the only way I know how, with hopes, with dreams, and a steep learning curve. Rough. It's January again, and Games Workshop's marketing strategy has finally broken me. There comes a time in every man's life where he needs to stop dipping his brush just anywhere and start making better decisions. It's time to settle down. It's time to commit, to build something solid, something meaningful, something I can cherish. No, not marriage. I'm talking about Warhammer, of course, and I want to build a new army. New year, new army, and it seems like the perfect time of year to get stuck in. But that does raise the question: which army? I mean, there's Chaos is pretty cool, but there's not really too many Chaos kill teams that I like, and new Corsairs do look amazing, and the Eldar Corsairs look amazing. But I do like Eldar and I do like Necrons, but I think I'm gonna go with something Imperium. I want something I can build through kill teams and play boarding actions with. I want something that has varied colour schemes so I don't get bored just painting the same thing over and over again. I want something I can kit bash as well, and something grim dark. But I think there's only really one answer to this, and that's Imperial Agents and Imperial Guard Soup, which technically is two answers, and not really committing to one army, but I can splice them together, I think. Here's the plan. I'm going to make two boarding patrols, 500 points each of guards and Imperial Agents, and I'm going to try and do my best to build those up of kill teams so I can play both game systems at once. And that'll give me 1,000 points, right? At the end of the year. I think a year's okay to... it's enough time to build 1,000 points, and it gives me enough wiggle room just in case there's any kill teams that pop up that tickle my fancy. So, oh yes, I'm going to build an army, and I'm going to start with Inquisitorial Agents because I already own those. They've been staring at me from the shelf of shame for a while now, so let's get them done. I'm using a team I kit bashed in a previous video, which you're very welcome to check out if you're interested, but I'll start by spraying the models black, then hitting them with a white Zenithal Prime from above. In theory, this should leave the recesses nice and dark, while the upper surfaces where the sun would naturally hit stay white. Now, I don't usually Zenithal Prime, so why am I starting now? Games Workshop marketing strategy is not the only strategy that's got me. The John Blanche Masterclass paint sets from the Army Painter have also broken me. These sets come loaded with base colours, including speed paint base colours, and when base coating with speed paints, it's best to do it over a Zenithal Prime. I've been chasing a grimdark style for a while now, trying to use solely acrylics because I just don't want to use the chemicals usually associated with grimdark painting, and these paint sets have got me really curious to see what they can do. So away we go. I want to limit my palette to what's in the box as much as possible, so naturally the very first thing I do is break my own rule. I mix Rhinox hide and mahogany together like I'm on a cooking show. That rich muddy brown goes straight onto all the metal bits, guns, bionics, anything that looks like it's seen a few centuries of war. I also hit all the leather straps, belts and holsters and such. Then I highlight everything with Scrag Brown. Why am I betraying my self-imposed challenge 30 seconds in? Because this recipe works. It's my comfort zone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And let's be honest, the paint sets look gorgeous, but they don't exactly include every hue and tone I might need. Excuses aside, it's time to crack open the speed paints. Which, by the way, there are fewer than I thought. What can I say? Pay attention to what you're buying, lads. First up, Turnbull Turquoise. I picked two models and absolutely flood the trousers. None of this delicate glazing nonsense. We're committing. And to be fair, I love this colour. It flows into the recesses like it actually understands the assignment. This is what I imagine speed paint is supposed to act like. Seeps into the recesses and spreads thin on the high areas. Emboldened, I grab Blood Moon Red next, and immediately I notice it's more translucent. It's like the shy cousin of Turnbull Turquoise, but that's not a bad thing. It really shows off the Zenithal Prime underneath. The shadows stay deep, the highlights glow through, and once it dries, it gives that gritty, grim-dark energy, like he's jumped straight out of a John Blanche sketchbook. And that's it, a grand total of 2 actual speed paints in the set. The rest washes, apparently, so maybe the Zenithal Prime wasn't strictly necessary. Maybe I got emotionally manipulated by marketing again, hard to say. Anyway, Let's move on to the acrylic reds and see if they slap or they just politely pluck. I kick things off with fiery vermilion, and this colour does not arrive quietly. It kicks the door in, bold, bright, slightly orange red. Two thin coats go down and it looks clean, crisp, almost too clean. One thing I noticed straight away, these acrylics are thicker than the Viejo or Citadel paints I'm used to. Not bad, just dense, like they've been hitting the gym. I just need to thin them a little bit more than usual. Once diluted, they behave nicely, and the pigment, it's really solid. It covers well and doesn't feel chalky or weak. Now, side by side, the two reds tell very different stories. Blood Moon Red, with the slap chop method, has a proper moody vibe. There are some title marks, yes, but let's be fair, that's user error, that's not the paint. You can also see the imperfections from the Rattlecam Prime underneath, every little spot, every tiny speck. Maybe one day I'll get an airbrush and ascend. Until then, slap chop, in my uneducated opinion, sucks balls. And the fiery vermilion, it's so bold and saturated that I'm starting to think it might work better as an accent colour rather than the main event. On the robes, it's almost too confident. It needs knocking down a peg. So I think, what will happen if I hit it with Blood Moon Red as a wash? Let's find out. I slather on a coat, then once it's dry I go in with another, and yes, it does take a bit longer to dry than Citadel's equivalents, but that extra working time, it's actually helpful. It gives me room to move around instead of watching it lock in place like instant cement. Once it's fully dry, I really like it. The red deepens, it gains weight, it goes from freshly pressed uniform to I've seen things. So, quality stuff. Next up, I hit all the gold areas with Emperor's Gold before attempting to dirty up the robes. And wow, this gold is bright, like freshly polished cathedral trim bright. In my deeply unqualified opinion, this feels more like a highlight gold than a base. But we're not done yet, because everything gets dirty eventually. Time to drag these robes through the mud and see what survives. I want them dirty, not oops, I dropped it dirty. I mean devotional, candle smoke, high city pollution, seen too many heresies dirty. First up, Voodoo Shade. I thought this was going to be a straight up Agrag's equivalent, but it's actually closer to Garagak's Sewer in hue. The big difference, it behaves like an actual shade. It flows into the recesses, settles down, doesn't try to stain every raised surface like it's marking territory. Two coats and I'm grinning. The robes lose that fresh from the laundry look and start developing some history. Next, I crack open Blanched Cherry. This is a filthy purple, the kind of purple that's been up all night making questionable decisions. It's rich, moody, dramatic. I lay it down, two thin coats, let it settle, then follow up with two more passes of Voodoo Shade over the top. And now we're cooking. The purple deepens, the folds get shadowy, and I'm genuinely loving how this is turning out. Then we get to the Preacher's white robes. White, the most dangerous colour in the hobby. I hit it with two coats of Voodoo Shade and immediately that green tint shows up loud and proud. A little too proud. It's edging dangerously close to Nurgle territory. We're not building a secret cultist here, so I reach for the grim dark shadow to rein it in. One coat over the top and boom, the green gets knocked back, the grime settles into something more neutral, more weathered. Now it looks dirty in a lived-in way, not in a blessed by the dark gods way. Exactly where I like it. Here's the process so far, and I'm loving it, all of it. Except the auto savant. This right here is why slap chop sucks. If you make a mistake, that's it. It's fossilized, locked in. Corrections are harder to make than reforming a two-time offender, and this model certainly looks irredeemable. Also, I'm not fully sold on Fiery Vermilion anymore. It's bold, it's confident, it's perhaps too confident. So naturally, I use only what's in the set rule again, and out comes Corn Red. I repaint the robes of the Auto Savant and the Enlightener, but I leave the Pistolier and Fiery Vermilion, just in case second-guessing John Blanche turns out to be a bad idea. After laying down the Corn Red and hitting it with a wash of Voodoo Shade, this is the result. We're back in business. The red is deeper, moodier, less festival parade, more interrogation chamber. The Auto Savant might yet be saved from hobby purgatory. Now, let's talk black. The John Blanche sets don't actually include a straight black, which at first feels illegal, but what they do include is something called the Darkness, and this is not black. It's a dirty, deep, almost chromatic black, the kind of colour that pretends it's black in low light but reveals its secrets under scrutiny, and I'm absolutely here for it. I paint coats, boots, undershrouds, all the shadowy bits with the darkness. A couple of coats to build up, then I wash it with grimdark shadow. And once again, I'm loving it. It's not flat, it's not dead, it has depth. It feels like fabric that's absorbed a century of incense smoke and bad news, which is exactly what I want from the Inquisition. Next up, white, my ancient rival, the colour that offers no forgiveness. I grab ivory white and start blocking in the gun servitor and the pistolier, roughly following the box art, and to be fair, it's a gorgeous tone, warm, soft, not that clinical hospital white, but I don't thin it enough. Confidence is high, water discipline is low, it goes on a little blotchy in places, so future me will have to circle back and tidy it up. Now onto the browns. First up, sunburst ochre. Lovely colour, rich, warm, slightly mustardy. I can only think of one place to use it on this guy's shirt, just a test, a controlled deployment, then Banshee Brown. I use it to pick up the bits I missed earlier with my forbidden Rhinox hide and mahogany cocktail, straps on the shin guards, the fur around the preacher's neck, and here's the twist. Banshee Brown is basically the colour I was trying to invent at the start of the video, so all that mixing, all that rebellion, completely unnecessary. From now on, I'm just using Banshee Brown. Now, greens. I start with blighted green on the Death World veterans' trousers, plus the interrogators and service skulls book for good measure. The colour itself, very nice, good tone, decent coverage, but it has a satin finish. I don't want satin, I want worn. I want fabric that's been dragged through the mud of multiple Xenos worlds. Satin says parade uniform, I want trench warfare. So, noted. Next is Midnight Olive on the veteran's shirt. Much better, more matte, more practical. That says I live in a forest and I haven't updated my paperwork in years. Finally, Tainted Garden goes onto the veteran's shoulder plates. Between the three greens in the set, I'm actually pretty close to the box art. That's a win. I'll take the win. We don't get many of those. And to tie it all together, I hit everything with Voodoo Shade because apparently that's just how I operate now. Then I circle back with Fiery Vermilion for some accent details on the interrogator. Shoulders, cuffs, little flashes of colour. Of course, they get a wash afterwards. Nobody escapes the grime. Now back to Corn Red, and technically I'm not breaking my rule again. I've already broken it. This is just commitment. I apply it to the plasma cannon, but I deliberately stop short of the edges so that the brown undercoat shows through as a sort of natural weathered highlight. Lazy? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. I do something similar with Viejo Black on a few pistols and pipes. In hindsight, I should have just used the darkness. It just fits the vibe better, and lesson learned, I guess. Next, I break out the heavy metal. I block in all the gun casings, mechanical bits, and all the various decorative trinkets these models are covered in. The metallics in the set are actually really nice. Smooth, not overly thick. They go on without fighting me. Finally, I accept the Emperor's Gold is just too bright. It's less ancient relic and more commemorative coin. So I reach for Balthazar Gold. Deep, rich, moody, the kind of gold that has stories. I paint it straight over all the previous gold areas and it instantly feels better. Then I hit all the metallics and all the brown leather bits from earlier with a generous wash of rattling grime. Boots, pouches, holsters. If it looks like it could absorb dirt, it absorbs dirt. I bring the gold back up with Emperor's Gold as a highlight, and suddenly it looks burnished, tarnished, like it survived 10 years of war and at least 3 questionable Inquisitors. For the silver highlights, I grab Stormhost Silver because the John Blanche set doesn't include a highlight silver. We adapt, we overcome. Now I'm firmly in highlight mode. Purple robes get brought back up with Blanche Cherry, then I push the highest edges by mixing a little Tuscarora fur. Same process on the red robes, base with Corn Red, highlight with Corn Red, mixed with Tuscarora fur. Why Tuscarora fur? Because when I mix white into red, I get pink, and we're not painting bubblegum agents, for the time being. Tuscarora fur makes it warm, slightly lighter, still red without drifting into Valentine's Day. Black robes get highlighted back up with the darkness. Fiery vermilion robes just get a tidy highlight of the same colour, no need to push it further. White robes just get a gentle dry brush back up with white. Robes complete, and they look suitably dramatic. I block in Moonbeam Yellow on the chainswords of the Penal Legionnaire and the Questkeeper. This yellow is perfect. It looks like it crawled straight out of a John Blanche sketchbook. While that dries, I use the same yellow to sketch in some camo on the veteran, then I add the darkness over the top, which barely shows up on the satin blighted green, but it's the thought that counts. The camo looks a bit loud, so I knock it back with Voodoo Shade, then a bit of Blighted Green. It ends up passable. We move on. Back to the hazard stripes. I start lining in the darkness for the stripes and immediately realise it looks much easier when professionals do it. Mine look like they've just left the pub at closing time, so I paint over them with approximately 100 coats of yellow. Try again. Still wonky? Okay, third attempt. This time I lightly sketch guidelines with a pencil first. Revolutionary technology. Suddenly it looks way better. Turns out planning helps. I wrap the stripes around the chainsword, carefully checking direction on the reverse side, checking again and still getting it wrong. Of course I do. Paint over it, fix it, sorted. If at first you don't succeed, repaint, then repaint again. To weather them, I add small chips of the darkness over the yellow, especially where the lines looked suspect. Then a crisp edged highlight of Stormhouse Silver, and honestly, it looks pretty sweet. Now, skin. In the past, I've overwhelmed myself trying to use 12 different skin tones. This time, I keep it simple. Banshee brown base, then mix in Ruddy Terror for highlights. Mix in more Ruddy Terror for highlights, highlight again, and glaze back towards the previous tone before pushing brighter. Repeat. The result? Not bad at all, controlled, cohesive, good enough for army painting. I wash the hair with Agrak's Earthshade to give him that Wesley Snipes Demolition Man look. The same wash goes over all the parchment parts. Then I quietly paint over the sins of my first hazard stripe attempt with Corn Red like it never happened. Also use it on some cables and purity seals. Grimdark Shadow over the Corn Red, then heavily thinned Evil Sun's Scarlet for 2 light passes. Finish with Stormhouse Silver Edge highlights. For other skin tones, I simply wash the Zenithal Prime with Warm Skin Shade, 2 coats. Looks good. Maybe a bit too clean, so I finish with a wash of Grim Dark Shadow to bring it into the same filthy universe as everyone else. For the plasma cells, Viejo Blue Fluorescent straight over white, done. Instant glow, with the same fluo on the eye lens. I attempt some adventurous highlights on the fur with Ruddy Terror mixed with Tuskor fur. Questionable? Maybe. Acceptable? Probably. Skeleton Horde on all skulls, then highlight back up with Ivory White. Blanched Cherry on all feathers. Paper areas get re-highlighted after their Agrak's bath. Turn bold turquoise on the Mystic's staff. Candles get a simple grim dark wash. And now we're on to the flames. First, Moonbeam Yellow at the base, a touch of Corn Red halfway up the flame, a wash of Majos Purple, and a tiny dot of the darkness at the tip. And finally, the bases. I crack open my pot of Viejo Thick Mud, lovingly wrapped in cellophane to keep it moist between use. Slap a generous layer on each base. Once dry, Banshee Brown over the top, going back to smudge some on the bottom of the robes, then a dry brush of Scrag Brown, again making sure to catch the bottom of the robes. Add a few grass tufts, paint the rim black, and that's it. Army building has officially begun. Here they all are. What started as I'll just build an army this year led to trying a new paint range, breaking my own rules repeatedly, and discovering that hazard stripes are a character building exercise. The John Blanche set? I'm impressed. The colours have personality. They do rub off a bit when handling the models. So they're not as safe. They're beautifully dirty though. They kind of force you to commit, and when it works, it really works. Did everything go perfectly? Absolutely not. The quest keeper nearly saw the inside of a bin. Slapshot and I are still in couples counselling. I learned that Emperor's Gold is just for highlights and not to second guess John Blanche because the fiery vermilion looks fantastic. But overall, I'm really happy with how grimy and cohesive this team looks. It feels unified, it feels narrative, but I still think there's room for pushing the grimdark vibe more using acrylics. With 1,000 points planned for this year, this is just the beginning. If you like slapdash painting, over-the-top conversions and weird hobby projects, hit like and subscribe now. More Mad Dog Hobby coming soon. Ciao.